Well, I'm going to go through the presentation that I was supposed to give on February 12th in Yuba City. I apologize for that. I had a little problem with getting our plane started, and in the small town I live in, they only had one hose, and when it blew in two, I was not going to get there. So essentially, I know that we're about to the end of the road on how much time there is to sign up for all these farm program choices. Again, February 27th is the date, and I'll go through that in just a minute for the yield update and base reallocation decisions. What you're looking at now is a flow chart that I've shown at a number of meetings across the country, and there's nothing real magical about it. There are three sets of really important decisions to make on this farm bill. The first one, and I can't express to you, regardless of what farm program choice you want, you need to update your yields if you can. If you haven't had a problem with lower yields, you don't have to take a lower yield than you had in the past, but you obviously, if you have a chance to increase it any at all, then fairly much you need to do that. The second thing is the base reallocation, and depending upon the planted acres on your farms, you've got your historical bases that were set in the mid 1980s. There was an option to update both bases and yields in 2002, but there was a joint decision, and not a lot of rice producers were able to take advantage of it. Maybe in California that's different. But so with the base reallocation, you have to evaluate: do you leave them, or do you move them to what maybe you've planted something different over time? Really straightforward thing if you use one of the decision aids to look at that. But obviously you can get with FSA, you can calculate the choices of my old base was this, my new base could be this. But the big question is financially which one makes the most sense and where do you get most protection from. Then the last thing is the one that we've been struggling with, between agricultural risk coverage, county option or individual option, and then price loss coverage. And as you see from the graph, as we talked about before, the choice of price loss coverage allows you to move into getting to purchase supplemental coverage option on top of your existing policy. That's really the setup. So 3 decisions, and then once all that's done with FSA in the next few months, say, then there is always every year there's an annual election, and the annual election for 14 and 15 will be done at the same time later this year. So that's really the big decision. Depending upon how either of these programs will pay and provide you the protection you got to get, that really changes people's decisions. The timing, as we're sitting here not too far in advance of the February 27th date, I think most states that I have talked with, I know, for example, a number of states in Texas and surrounding have already announced that they don't have the personnel in place to get everyone signed up by the 27th, so they're going to establish a register. I don't know if that's a fact yet for California, but if they have that ability, so I would assume if there are lines and people waiting, that they will establish a register there as well. The main thing is that register is going to operate for a few months, and it's just to allow the staff in the offices to work through the people. If you get to March 31st and haven't made your choice between ARC and PLC, I'll be very surprised. Anyone who has used our decision aid here at Texas A&M has basically, once you evaluate the base reallocation, it does the ARC PLC right simultaneous. So when you go in by the 27th, or if you get on the register, you can get everything knocked out right then, and I would advise you to do that. Just as a reminder on yield updating, this is one of those interesting things. If you didn't plant a crop, it uses the 2008 to 2012 actual yield per actual planted acre, and it takes that average and multiplies times 0.9. Any year you did not plant that crop on that particular farm number, it doesn't factor into the equation. So in the first column there, you divide by 4 with 1 year you didn't plant. And the first green column there, that's an example of a producer who picked up a new farm, cannot get access to the yield history records from the previous tenant, and so they're going to have to take what we would call plugs. So the 70, which is a substitute yield, would be used for 3 years where it had been the crop had been planted on the farm, but they couldn't get access to the records. The last column is the same situation, but you can get access to the previous tenant's records, and you can use that to update your yields. So there's a lot of specific questions on that, and I'm going to give you our help desk number at the very end of this presentation. If you've got specific questions, this is what we're here for. No one has these simple examples as I lay it out here. Everything's always a little bit different. But again, if it was a crop wasn't planted on a particular farm number, it doesn't factor in. So when I've done this talk, coming up pretty close to 200 times in the last year, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm a little bit more blunt about what you need to do. There's nothing about the yield decision that tells me, even if you pick ARC that doesn't use those program yields, you need to get it done, because who knows what the next program is going to be in the future. And I just don't see it was hard enough to get it where you had the opportunity to do it this time. I can't imagine getting to do it in the next farm bill as well. So you need to update your yields if you can. Base reallocation really depends on what's going to make you the best situation for you financially. If you haven't really changed your basis, it's not much of a decision, but it's something to look at. And again, it uses 2009 to 12 covered crop plantings to determine what the reallocation could be. The models, if you use our tool or someone else's, usually have the equations typed in there, and so you just put it in your planted acres and it'll tell you what the reallocation could be. Again, with regard to Japonica rice out in California, the reference price is going to be $16.10, and the PLC will provide protection if the marketing or average price falls below $16.10. If we get much below that, then you're going to have the situation where the loan would kick in, but we don't really see that happening anytime in this next 5 years. So that's really a basic setup. Pays on 85% of the base acres. Increase your yield. It's going to give you more protection. You can put crop insurance, this SEO product, on top of your existing plan if you choose price loss coverage, and it's an option that people need to look at. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The ARC County for Japonica rice, again, you establish the benchmark. The benchmark uses the previous 5 years marketing year prices, subtract the high and the low, multiplies that by the same process on county yields. The benchmark is set using that process, and then on an annual basis, if the marketing year average price for Japonica rice times the county yield is below or in that 86 to 76% range that have labeled in blue, then there would be a payment. And that's the big deal. With certain types of rices, like say long grain rice, for example, the benchmark calculations aren't very good. The prices weren't very good in that 5 year previous period, and so that's why price loss coverage looks really good to long grain rice. For this and for your rice in particular, the prices were pretty good, significantly higher than the reference price that was set, and so there's a real decision there, because while this ARC only pays that band if you have a loss larger than 10%, you're not going to get it paid on it. And in this example, I showed a gap between your insurance coverage and the bottom range of 76% on the coverage band. So that white blank space there would be a coverage gap, and you wouldn't get any help from the government for that loss of that size. A bigger loss, and your insurance would likely kick in and help out. So those are some decisions you have to make, and it's not, none of this is real simple. You have to look at things just to give you a point of departure, not because it's that relevant to you, but on long grain, it's a very easy deal to look at this graph. The first part of the red line is historical rice price, long grain prices, kind of starting in 2014. That's the projections, and with the current set of projections, when you take that last 5 years, drop the high and the low, you get 14, 17. Mathematically, it works out that way. You're dropping about the same thing every year. So the benchmark price side is the blue line, and it really stays around the $14, $17 to $14 range. what does that mean? Well, 86% of that level is between the green and the purple. That's where the price, the red line, would have to be to trigger a payment. So where we're at on long grain rice is real simple. The distance between the yellow line and the red is significant. There's going to be payments unless the market price really rebounds. There'll be payments most years of the Farm Bill, and there would be an opportunity for ARC payments to trigger, but they would be less. And so most people are looking at long grain rice and looking at that and saying, I'm going to go with price loss coverage. The situation with Japonica rice is a little bit different. With regard to the prices, they weren't nearly as bad, significantly higher, different type of rice. When you look at the blue line, the benchmark price for the ARC calculations, it stays up pretty well. So even though the price forecast coming down, you still have a really solid benchmark price. Assuming the yields are staying up high, you're going to have quite a bit of protection. So where we're at is that you're going to have a higher level of protection. So the green line is at top of the band. So if the red had ever dips below the green, there will be a payment. And what we're looking at on this particular chart is the fact that the red line, the prices are supposed to be higher. We all know that this is just a price forecast that may or may not come true. But what would happen first is the ARC county would trigger before the reference prices hit. The red line, if it starts falling, will meet the green before it meets the yellow. And so there's a little bit of indifference there. Some people would look at that graph and say, I'll just go with ARC County, it'll pay first. Some people will look at this graph and say it's really close. And price loss coverage gives me the opportunity to select SCO, and I may want to do that to protect myself at higher levels. So again, decisions for California folks, it's not quite as clear, it's not as easy. Some of this stuff is a lot easier for other crops, but for this particular crop, you look at this graph. If you like my explanation, great. If you don't, every month we get new prices, and things change. And so, hopefully the red line stays high, and you never even worry about getting a payment from the government that would help offset losses. But in the event that prices decline or your revenue declines, in the case of ARC, you need to figure out which one of these would be the best thing for you. One of the things I have done, I put together this chart. The first column obviously is the reference prices. Then you look at 2014 benchmark price. That would be that blue line on the previous graph. And you can kind of see that when you compare to the, so the 2014 benchmark price is for corn, example is 529. 86% of it, or where would the protection actually come in, is at 455. And I have it green because it's higher than 370. So that's in 14. If you keep going across the line on corn, by 2018, with the price forecasts, the benchmark is going to fall off to 392. 86% of that is 337, which is red now because it's below the reference price. So for some commodities, you start off with a high amount of support from ARC County on the price side, and then over time with price forecasts coming in, and you have lower numbers replacing higher historical data on that 5-year moving average, dropping the high and the low. By the time the Farm Bill is over, you're going to have, for some of these crops, you're going to have a lot less protection than you would have had just taking price loss coverage. For Japonica rice, which is the last line on here, essentially you're going to be better off from start to finish just comparing to the reference price. So again, ARC County versus PLC. ARC County looks like it would be providing a higher level of protection, as already discussed. You have to evaluate that relative to crop insurance. When you start looking at crop insurance, I don't have the 2014 data loaded yet, but when you start looking at certain crops, rice is one that's notoriously at low levels of coverage. 50 to 65% coverage is red, and that's what most of California is. If it's a little bit of orange, which is 65 to 70%. So the ability of supplemental coverage option to set on top of this 50 to 65, for example, Supplemental coverage option for an additional premium. You can get your coverage level up to 86% of your benchmark, which in normal years would be a tremendous asset. All of you know by now that there wasn't enough data enough trading to establish a price, and so the revenue or the price, basically the only product that's going to be available is yield coverage, and that may have been what you were buying anyway, but it's very frustrating in someone like myself who goes out and discusses these programs. It's very frustrating to get people excited about, maybe I can buy revenue coverage on SCO and set it on top of my existing plan and move my coverage on up to a level that would be really beneficial, especially depending upon when the insurance price was going to be set. And for the first year of the Farm Bill, basically, where you had this option of supplemental coverage option, for the futures not to have enough trading to give you the ability to do that, it's really a frustrating situation. And it's not just California. It's hindered our efforts to work with producers all across the United States on rice, who are thinking about doing some things a little bit different. But if that's going to be the situation, either something has to be changed with how they set rice prices, or it's not going to be very useful to you if the light trading causes it not to be effective. One of the things that people keep asking is, well, SCO has a 65% government subsidy, which means the government pays 65% of the premium and the producer would pay 35%. That's a pretty simple concept. And a lot of people are saying, well, you know, if you were to choose enterprise units at 70%, you get a lot higher subsidy, and that's exactly right. SCO is an area plan. It uses a county average to trigger a payment or not. Enterprise units uses all your, say, rice in the county to determine whether there be an overall level of coverage that if there's a loss, you have to lose on the whole, all your rice in the county, not just one farm. You can contrast that to the basic or individual unit coverage, which is that farm over here, that field over here. If I got that as an insurance unit, if it has a loss relative to the benchmark, I'm going to get paid. Our enterprise basically takes all my farms in the county, averages them together to determine whether there was an overall loss or not, determine whether I get paid. Why is there such a big subsidy at higher levels of coverage? Is because it's less likely to pay, and that's the reality. Why is SCO subsidized higher at 65% relative to your 59% for your individual? It's because it's less likely to pay. The county would have to have a loss. Now, let's just get right to it. On rice, you don't have a lot of yield risk. It's all a price risk side. Maybe there's other ways, other ways you can use that money that you would have bought this insurance for. Maybe there's something you do in the futures market to protect yourself. We've got to look at that really hard. But again, one of the selling points all along to price loss coverage in this Farm Bill was the opportunity to purchase SCO. And again, the way it worked out with rice, that opportunity is still there, but not for a revenue product for this year. This chart basically is the most recent FAPRI forecast as of February for the next 5 years for all the different covered commodities. I've been talking to you about rice because basically California Rice Commissions, who I was visiting with, and I think this is where this podcast is going to be posted. But there's a number of other crops. If you need help on other crops, you can certainly get a hold of us as well. One of the things just to remind you about is the marketing your average price. Most people, once they find out that regardless of what choice they make on this Farm Bill, the first money you would get out of this bill for the 15 crop would come in no earlier than October of 16. So for the 2014 crop that's already been harvested and sold, if there's a payment associated with that one, that would be after October 1st of 2015. So that's just the marketing year averages. Just remember that they matter. Most people, I think in the rice industry, understand this concept a lot more. I do a lot of speaking around the country, and most people have no idea what the marketing year average price is. They are surveying elevators, mills, depending upon the crop, but the USDA surveys them, and they collect an average price for that month, and then they will determine a weight that I'm going to show you in just a minute, and multiply that price times the weight, and then do a weighted average price, so it's a marketing year price average. And so when people start asking me about, well, I think the price is down, or I'm going to get a payment, just recall it's a price that's basically starts at harvest and finishes at the next harvest, and then a little bit after that the government will report what that average was. It's pretty difficult to track. Most farmers understand what they got for their crops or the nearby futures or something like that, but this is a different concept. As an example, we're sitting here, I forgot to draw all my lines across, but the normal weights associated with marketings for the different crops are indicated here. And as you can see, when wheat's harvested in the summer for most of the country here, most of the price has been set 74% by the end of December. Other crops by the end of December was much less. Now, if you look into it, we have on rice, we will have had quite a bit of the rice price set, but we still won't be much more than 50% by now. So prices could change over time, and these weights are determined over a long period of time, and this is what we've been having. So with regard to evaluating all this stuff, the website, if you haven't used it yet, is usda.afpc.tmu.edu. And the website was designed to do a wide range of options for producers, not just what I got to do with FSA real soon. And so we've got a lot of stuff there. And the way I encourage producers to think about this is, if you take the time and you invest the time to put your stuff in, yes, we will get you the answers that you're looking for on the FSA decisions, but we're also going to be in place so you can evaluate crop insurance and kind of really stress test the model to determine what's the best thing for me to be doing on insurance, because I would hate for you to be spending a lot of money on insurance when you really could be doing something in the options market or some other hedging mechanism that would be just as good and less money for you. So we want you to look at all your options with the tool. It's pretty advanced, but frankly it will give you a lot of information. If you need any help whatsoever, we have a help desk that is staffed from 7 to 7 Central Time, 5 days a week. The toll-free number is here. When you call that toll-free number, that's an answering service. We'll take your information down and send us an email. Why do we do that? Well, because at one point we were worried, or at least wanting to be able to accept, if someone called, the answering service could handle Spanish or English, and we have people who will be able to walk you through this whole thing in Spanish if that was the case, or obviously English. So that's the number you would call. Again, for us, my information is located here. If you haven't done this by now, we're really short of time. If you're listening to this video and there's still time, I would appreciate you just going ahead and sending me an email and saying, let's get on with this. I need some help. We'll be glad to help you. From time to time, we help farmers with input information and things like that. We think it's fairly easy to go through the decision aid to put it in, but frankly, there's so little time that unless you're a really big, huge farm, I think we could probably help you quite a bit. The reason why I put this our web address up there is on that web page is something called Farm Policy Minute. There's a number of podcasts. I've been pointing people to look at number 12. If you watch that video, it will help you a lot better understand how to put the information in the tool. But again, we have no time left anymore. If you haven't made your decisions yet, you're going to be doing it shortly, and we need to get you some help. So either call the help desk number. This is my direct line into my office, and you can get me, or send me an email, and I will get you help as soon as we possibly can. Thank you very much.